Ever get that feeling like someone's watching over you, like a chill down your spine? Or maybe a bunch of coincidences happen, and you wonder if it's something bigger. Well, today we're looking into a story that deals with those questions. The story of Janie Lark, a pediatric nurse, and her experience with, well, angels.
It's pretty wild how Janie's story, coming from medicine and all, mixes with these old ideas about guardian angels and spiritual stuff.
Right. I mean, you'd think someone in healthcare wouldn't really be into those sorts of things. So, where does it all start? Janie's story begins with a car crash back on November 18th, 2023.
Oh yeah, the thing that kicked off her crazy story. Her saying she was clinically dead for like 7 minutes and 13 seconds, and during that time she says she went to the spiritual world, has definitely got people talking.
7 minutes and 13 seconds. Makes you think, what goes on in that in-between space of life and death?
Absolutely. Janie's story really makes us think about those big questions, especially since she describes it all so vividly, and she really believes it. It's not just a feeling. She gives a very specific picture of what she saw.
Okay, so let's break that down. What did Janie actually say happened during those 7 minutes and 13 seconds? She talks about these beings all light, radiating pure love, not like the typical angel pictures we see with wings and all.
It's interesting how her description changes what we think angels should look like. It's more like a personal, kind of ghostly presence without the usual stuff we associate with angels.
Right. It's not about harps and halos. It's pure love and light energy. And she said she immediately knew them, like meeting an old friend she'd forgotten. But here's the crazy part. She says her guardian angel has been with her since she was born, always there, and she suddenly remembered during this near-death thing.
That idea of a lifelong guardian, someone watching over us from the start, is powerful. It's in lots of cultures and beliefs, but it also makes you wonder about choices and destiny. If our guardian angels are always around, guiding us, how much do we actually control our own lives?
That's a good point. Makes you think about all those seemingly random times in your life, right? Were they really random, or was there something guiding them, putting you on a path? But Janie didn't just see her guardian angel. She talks about a journey through time, seeing things differently. She saw important moments from her life, but from her guardian angel's point of view, like watching a movie of your life, but someone else is directing it.
Exactly. That idea of seeing your life from another angle, maybe even through a spiritual guide, is common in near-death stories. It's like becoming more aware, seeing the bigger picture of our choices, how even small moments can have big effects.
For example, she talks about when she was little, her angel steered her away from danger. Just a little nudge, but it maybe saved her life. Then as a teenager, she got sick suddenly, which stopped her from getting in a car with a drunk driver.
Easy to call those coincidences, but seeing it through Janie's experience, they mean something totally different. It makes you think, what if these random things aren't so random? What if something is keeping us safe, making things work out?
It's kind of creepy when you think about it that way. And Janie says it wasn't only the big stuff. She says her angels were part of everyday things, like good thoughts and those coincidences that helped her, like little good things happening all the time.
And that's where things get really interesting, looking at it from a psychology angle. We humans, we love patterns. We're wired to find connections, even in random stuff. So the question is, are these angels real? Or is it our minds trying to make sense of the chaos, finding order where there isn't any?
It's that classic fight between believing and proving, right? Where's the line between what we feel and what's real? But Janie's story goes deeper. She says she saw layers of reality, revealing this spiritual war happening around us all the time, good versus evil playing out on a battlefield we can't see.
This idea of many layers of reality where spiritual forces are constantly fighting is in a lot of mystical and spiritual traditions. But it also kind of connects with modern physics, with string theory and all, multiple dimensions, the idea that what we see might just be a tiny part of a much bigger universe.
Okay, so what did this spiritual war look like? What were the angels fighting against?
According to Janie, it wasn't like swords and shields, but light against darkness, truth against lies, hope against despair. She describes this constant fight to protect people, communities, even the whole planet from bad energy.
That's a pretty intense image. So it's not just about our own lives, it's about the whole world, maybe even the universe. Makes you wonder, what side are we on? Do we even know these battles are going on?
Exactly. And that brings up another interesting question. If these battles are real, how do they show up in our world? Do they affect what happens, our thoughts, how history goes?
It's a lot to think about. So what specific examples does Janie give about how these angels work in different parts of life? She talks about hospitals, which makes sense since she's a nurse. She says angels comfort those who are dying, help the weak, and even do what she calls miracle healings.
It's fascinating how this belief might affect someone's work, especially in healthcare, where life and death are always there. Imagine working with patients believing you're not alone, that there are things helping you heal and comfort people. It could really change how you see things.
Totally. It adds a whole other level to caring for people. But it also brings up some tough questions. If angels are affected how patients get better, does that change how we see doctors and nurses doing their jobs? Where's the line between divine help and what people do?
Those are really important questions, and ones we'll need to think about as we look closer at Janie's story. What's clear is that her experience totally changed how she sees life, death, and everything.
It makes you wonder if we're all walking around not seeing this unseen world that might be right there. But what about outside hospitals? Did Janie mention other areas where angels are working?
Oh, absolutely. She says angels are in all sorts of places. For example, she says they protect people from accidents, make sure less damage happens in emergencies, and even steer people away from danger. Like they're always trying to keep us safe, guide us to what's good for us.
And it wasn't just about safety. Janie also talks about how angels pay special attention to kids, helping their imaginations and keeping them from harm. It's a nice image, like these invisible guardians watching our little ones, inspiring them and keeping them innocent.
It's like that basic instinct, right? Wanting to believe our kids are safe, that something's watching over them when we can't. It's comforting, even if it's hard to believe when bad things happen in the world.
It's that back and forth, faith and doubt, hope and all that. But it's interesting how these beliefs can change what we do and how we see things. If we believe our kids are protected by something bigger, are we more or less careful? Does it change how we act as parents?
Those are great questions, ones that I bet a lot of parents think about. It shows how complicated it is, what we believe, what we do, and taking responsibility. And it's something we'll keep looking at as we go deeper into Janie's story.
All right, so we've talked about angels in hospitals, keeping people safe, and watching over kids. But Janie's story doesn't stop there. She says angels might even be affecting our thoughts and dreams, using those to talk to us, guide our choices, and even give us creative ideas.
Yeah, dreams and intuition. It can be tricky, right? Trying to figure out if it's real spiritual guidance or just our own subconscious.
Exactly. It's easy to say those sudden ideas or gut feelings are just random, but Janie's story makes us wonder, what if there's more to it? What if dreams are a way to another world, a way for our angels to talk to us without using words?
It's an interesting idea, one that's been around for ages. The thought that we might be getting messages, wisdom, or even creative sparks from something bigger is definitely appealing. But it also makes you think about if it's real and how to tell. How do we know if it's really divine guidance or just us wanting things to be a certain way?
It's a tough balance. And it shows how important it is to think critically, even when we're talking about spiritual stuff. We can't just believe everything we hear or feel. We have to figure out what's true for ourselves. But that's for another time. For now, let's get back to Janie's story. She also talked about angels working through animals, especially those that help people and pets, to give comfort and protection, like they're using everything they can to reach us and help.
That's a beautiful idea, and it fits with how a lot of people feel about their pets. There's a deep connection, a feeling of pure love and support that can be really healing. Whether it's angels or just the bond between people and animals, it shows how connected we all are.
Makes you think if we're all just parts of a much bigger thing, each playing our role. And if so, what's our part? Are we just receiving help from angels, or do we actively do something in this whole thing?
That's a big question, and I think it's at the heart of Janie's story. It's not just about angels doing stuff for us, it's about working together, the seen and unseen world where we can choose, act, and create our own reality.
So it's not giving up our free will, it's about joining with these forces of good, becoming part of this big adventure of life. But how do we do that? How do we get past the doubts, the fear, and accept this idea of angels helping us?
That's a great question, and one we'll dig into more as we keep looking into Janie's story. But for now, let's stop and think about what we've heard. What makes sense to you? What questions are popping up?
I know I've got a lot of questions in my head, but before we get too deep into it, let's talk about the obvious thing. The people who don't believe. Not everyone's going to buy this angel stuff. Some might say it's all in her head, maybe because of the crash. How do we respond to that?
That's totally valid, and we need to be open to it. While there's no scientific proof of angels, There's more and more research on near-death experiences, consciousness, and reality that suggests some interesting possibilities.
Like those studies where people during near-death experiences describe things happening outside their bodies that they couldn't have known. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. And it suggests that our consciousness, our awareness, might not be stuck in our bodies, that it can see things from outside. This opens up all sorts of ideas, like maybe there are non-physical things or worlds that we can't see or understand with our current science.
Like we're just starting to understand the universe and where we fit in. There's so much we don't know, so much that's still a mystery. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not knowing is part of what makes life interesting, full of surprises and possibilities.
Maybe what's important about Janie's story, whether we take it literally or not, is that it makes us question what we think we know, see things differently, and consider ideas that might be beyond what we currently understand.
It's like a little nudge, a whisper, reminding us that there might be more to life than what we see. And maybe, just maybe, if you're open to it, we might see those unseen forces that are guiding us, protecting us, and rooting for us on our journey.
It's like we're standing at the edge of a huge ocean, looking out, wondering what's down there. Janie's experience makes us want to just jump in, go into the unknown, and explore all this stuff about consciousness and spirituality.
And maybe, while we're exploring, we'll find out something amazing about ourselves, about reality, and how everything's connected. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We were talking about people not believing this angel stuff. How do we make Janie's story fit with science and logic, which a lot of us believe in?
That's where this idea of veridical perception comes in. You mentioned those studies where, during near-death experiences, people accurately describe things happening outside their bodies. These findings, even though scientists are still debating them, challenge the idea that consciousness only comes from the brain.
Right, it's like their consciousness, their awareness, is somehow separate from their body, able to see things from a different place.
Yeah.
But how does that connect to what Janie says about angels and spiritual battles?
Well, if we consider the possibility that consciousness isn't limited to the physical brain, it opens up a lot of possibilities. Maybe what Janie saw as angels were really like higher consciousness, special energies, or even parts of her own subconscious mind, projected onto her near-death experience.
Well, so we're not necessarily talking about actual beings with wings, but more like symbols of something deeper, something we don't understand yet.
Exactly. And the idea of spiritual warfare could be a symbol for the struggles we all have inside. Good versus bad, choosing between love and fear, being kind or judging others.
It's like that classic fight between good and evil is happening inside each of us, not on some big cosmic stage. But even if we see Janie's experience as a metaphor, it doesn't make it less powerful. She says meeting the spiritual world changed everything for her. How she sees the world, her relationships, even her work as a nurse.
And that's where her story becomes really interesting, whether we believe it literally or not. It's about how what we believe can change us, how our experiences shape how we see things and what we do. Imagine going through life, your job, relationships, even everyday stuff, believing you're not alone, that there's something guiding and helping you.
It's like adding a whole new layer to life, a feeling of connection and purpose that can make you feel stronger and inspired.
Exactly. And it brings up an interesting question. If these unseen forces are real, even if they're not literal angels with wings, how can we connect with them? How can we be more aware of them in our lives?
Okay, so let's get practical. What can we actually do to become more aware of this unseen world? Is it meditation, prayer, something else entirely?
Well, there's no one right answer, but there are things that can help us quiet our minds, tune into our intuition, and be more open to subtle guidance. Meditation, for example, can help us be more present and quiet those thoughts that distract us from our inner wisdom.
So it's about making space for those gut feelings to come through, those feelings that we often ignore as just random thoughts.
Exactly. And for some people, praying or doing things that connect them to something bigger might be how they get guidance. It's about being open and ready to listen to whatever insights might come.
It's like we're tuning into a different channel, opening ourselves to a whole new world of information and guidance that's always been there, but we were too busy or distracted to notice.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Building a relationship with the unseen, whether you call it intuition, your higher self, or angels, takes time. It's about learning, trusting, and figuring out what's real.
And probably making some mistakes along the way, right?
Yeah.
Learning what works for you and telling the difference between real insights and just random thoughts or wishful thinking.
Absolutely. Being able to tell the difference is key. That's where things like journaling, thinking about your experiences, and talking to people you trust or spiritual advisors can help. It's about having a way to understand and use these experiences in a way that feels true and helpful.
So it's not about just doing whatever pops into your head, but more about having a relationship with your inner guidance, learning to use its wisdom carefully and wisely.
Exactly. And as we build this deeper connection to our inner wisdom, we might find ourselves noticing those little signs and synchronicities around us, those seemingly random events that might actually be happening for a reason.
It's like we start seeing the world differently, noticing the connections that were always there, but we just didn't see them before.
Right. And as we become more aware of these little nudges, we might find our lives flowing more smoothly, like we're being guided along a path that's right for us.
That's a beautiful idea, isn't it? That we're not just wandering through life, but there's a plan, a purpose, something guiding us toward what's best for us.
It is. And even if we don't fully get how this unseen world works, even if we're a little skeptical, the idea that we're loved, supported, and guided by something bigger can be really comforting and empowering.
It's like knowing someone's got your back, even when you can't see them. It gives you the courage to try new things, step outside your comfort zone, and trust that you're being led to something amazing.
And maybe in letting go and trusting those unseen forces, we find a deeper sense of peace, purpose, and connection to something much greater than ourselves.
This reminds me of a time when I had a big decision to make. I felt totally lost and didn't know what to do. I remember going for a walk in the woods, trying to find some peace and clarity. And as I was walking, I found this little heart-shaped rock among the leaves.
That's a lovely image. What happened then?
Well, back then, I just thought it was a nice little coincidence, nature being full of surprises. But now, thinking about Janie's story, I wonder if it was more than that. Maybe it was a sign, a little nudge from the universe, telling me I was on the right track, that I was loved and supported, even when I was doubting myself.
It's amazing how our view of things can change as we learn and grow. What might have seemed random can take on a whole new meaning when we're open to the possibility of something bigger.
It's like we're always rewriting our life story, adding new layers of meaning as we change and evolve.
And as we do, the world around us might start to reflect those changes. We might notice more synchronicities, our intuition gets stronger, and we start to feel a sense of flow and purpose that we didn't have before.
It's like we're finally finding our place, becoming the best versions of ourselves, living in harmony with those unseen forces that are guiding and supporting us all along. But this is a lot to take in. Let's take a moment to think about it and then talk about what Janie says about love and free will in all of this.
Welcome back. It's pretty amazing how Janie's story connects all these different things. Near-death experiences, science, old spiritual ideas, and personal stories.
It's like a whole mix of human experiences, right? All these different views coming together around this big question, what's real and where do we fit in?
Yeah. And how much do we actually control our own lives? We were just about to get into what Janie thinks about free will and love, two pretty big ideas and how they fit into this whole angel thing. This is where Janie's story really makes you think. She says angels, at least how she understands them, respect our choices. They don't step in and change things or take away consequences. They're there to guide us, support us, protect us. But in the end, we decide.
So it's not like angels are running our lives like puppets. It's more like they're pointing us in the right direction, showing us the path, but letting us choose our own adventure. Which makes sense, right? If we were just being controlled, what would be the point of life? Where's the growth, the learning, all that?
Exactly. Making our own choices is how we grow spiritually. It's through the good and bad choices that we learn and evolve. And Janie thinks that's why angels don't mess with our free will. They know that we learn from our mistakes.
It's like that saying, you can't learn to sail in calm waters. We need those tough times, those challenges, to help us grow and figure out who we really are. But how does love fit into all of this? Janie talks a lot about how powerful love is in the world.
Right. She says love is the best weapon against darkness, the thing that drives all those good actions. And a lot of spiritual and philosophical teachings agree, seeing love as the highest energy, the strongest force in the universe.
So love is like the opposite of fear, the light that pushes away the dark. But what does that mean for us? How do we use this love weapon in our everyday lives?
Janie says that every nice thing we do, every time we're kind, every choice we make from love, it all adds to this big force of good. It's like we're all making love, and when we connect with each other that way, it becomes even more powerful.
That's beautiful. The idea that even small acts of love can make a difference, helping to make a better world. But it's also hard, right? The world can be a scary place with a lot of anger and division. How do we stay loving when there's so much negativity?
That's where things like mindfulness, being kind to ourselves, and focusing on what we're grateful for can help. These things train our minds to see the good, to find peace inside, and to react with love instead of getting upset.
Like we're getting stronger against negativity, making our inner light shine brighter when things are dark. But I'm curious. Janie says her near-death experience made her see angels everywhere, and those little miracles and coincidences that most of us miss. Can anyone learn to see that? Or does it only happen with those big life-changing moments like Janie had?
I think we can all learn to see it. It's not about actually seeing angels or having a near-death experience. It's about listening to that feeling inside, that intuition that tells us there's more to life than what we can see and explain.
So it's about noticing those little nudges, those gut feelings, those times when things line up perfectly and we think, that's weird. But instead of saying it's just chance, we stop and ask, what if it's something more?
Exactly. It's about being curious, wondering about things, being open to the idea that the universe might be trying to tell us something, even if we don't get it right away.
And maybe, if we listen really closely, we'll hear those whispers of guidance, those gentle pushes from something unseen, leading us to what's best for us and a more loving world.
It's a journey worth taking, right? Learning about ourselves, seeing things in new ways, opening our hearts to all the amazing possibilities that are out there.
Totally. So, as we finish up talking about Janie Lark's incredible story, let's leave our listeners with this. What if we're not alone in this thing called life? What if there's something bigger guiding us, supporting us, rooting for us all the way? What if love, compassion, and kindness are way more powerful than we ever thought? And what if, by just being open to these ideas, we can discover a world of wonder, meaning, and connection we never knew was there? It's something to think about, a journey to start, a mystery that unfolds with every breath we take.